Welcome to this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast, where we look forward to shaving every day. Welcome to episode 123 of the podcast. My name is Rick DeWeese. I'll be your host this week. We have got quite the show this week. We've caught up on a lot of emails. So, okay. First, we got an email. We've got two emails, actually, from Jeff. So we start there. Over at ShaveStraightandSafe, Joe's blog post, we've got the guide to Strops. Great stuff over there. There's also an email from John. There is a single-edge spineless feather blade solution from Randy in an email for using that spineless blade in your other single-edged razors. So there's actually a PDF attached that will show you how it's done. So good stuff there. An email from Mark all the way from Scotland. An email from Andrew with brush questions. Now, I will admit I am not a brush expert, so I threw out a lifeline to none other than Dark Bulb over at the Shave Den and on Twitter, and he responded, got a bunch of links for that. So good stuff there. Then we'll start getting into the shaves of the day. We'll do Thursday's shave of the day. A YouTube link for PaulHFilms, the original BRUT Aftershave by Faberge. Boy, that'll bring back some memories, huh? Planning. Just a quick observation on planning with my scouts. I got kind of a gut kick this last week. Amazon let me down in shipping. Tell you all about that. A special discovery in the scientific community. Good stuff. Maybe they can find a few things I've been missing for a while. And when did buying flowers online get to be such a pain in the, well, you know. So, yeah, tell you all about that. The Friday shave of the day, thanks to Try a Blade. They slipped something in my last package I didn't know about, so greatly appreciate that, guys. Good job, and got to try something new. The weekend shave of the day, and, well, oops, sometimes it happens. The Monday shave of the day. Let's talk about levers. I was doing something this past weekend and just got me thinking about levers, and so we'll talk about that as it relates to, well, shaving. And then finally we'll finish up with the weekend shave of the day, and after all that's said and done, we'll call it a day, we'll call it a show. At this point, I don't even know how long all this is going to go. I have not put it together yet. It will be what it will be. But there you go. That's the show this week, and we better get started. We'll be here all day. Let's start off with a few emails. Got an email from Jeff. It says, hello, it's Jeff again. I was wondering if you frequent this site by a young man. It's quite good in my opinion, which is worth a look. It's called scoutingrediscovered.com. And it says, just wondering, thanks for the great podcast this week, Jeff. Okay, so scoutingrediscovered.com. I went and took a look at it, and I had not seen that website yet. Looks like a great website all about traditional scouting and the patrol method and everything else. So I will be giving that a look. I mean, that's there's a lot of stuff here, and it was looks like it was put together with a great deal of care and a great deal of concern to, well, get it right. And that, well, quite honestly, that means a lot, you know. And okay, so if I go to the About page, this is something pretty cool. Sometimes you learn something so cool you want to share it with everyone. This was me a few years ago. I was 15, a patrol leader, and wanted to learn as much as I could about scouting and leadership. Wow. So here he is, and his name is Enoch Heiss, and he's an Eagle Scout, a writer, a tradesman, an entrepreneur, and an outdoor enthusiast from North Texas. Man, you can't get better than that. A guy that decided he wanted to learn about scouting and leadership and puts together something like this website. Yeah, good stuff. So we'll throw a link into it in the show notes. If you're interested in scouting at all, give it a look. I also got another email from Jeff, Razor Edge Systems, knife sharpening systems. He says, hello, I'm also a fan of Murray Carter. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I talked about a YouTube video of Murray Carter shaving with a spoon and the fact that he was on Wet Shaving News and an interview over there, which was pretty cool. So I figured I'd talk about Murray Carter and the fact that I have been using his system, trying desperately to get things sharp. I've been using it for a while. So anyhow, he says, hello, I am also a fan of Murray Carter and have been for several years, just trying to afford one of his blades without getting a divorce. The above system is one I have used for years after I found their book at Smoky Mountain Knife Works store one time when going through the Smoky Mountains. Their simple system really works. So I'll throw a link in there of the RazorEdgeSystems.com. And it does bring up a good point, though. If you ever go through the Pigeon Forge area, Seaverville, and in Tennessee there, and have an opportunity to stop at the Smoky Mountain Knife Works, yeah, you need to go. It is a sight to behold if you like, well, sharp things. It's when I go through there, I will make a special detour into Seaverville just to stop at the Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And, of course, right up the road is Bass Pro Shop, and across the street is a Lodge store, and across the street, the other kind of catacorner, I guess, is a Coleman outlet store. Yeah, well worth the trip. Anyhow, thanks a lot, Jeff. Appreciate the email. If you haven't checked it out yet, you need to get yourself over to www.ShaveStraightandSafe.com, dedicated to classic shaving, by Joe. And he's got a new post up there in the blog, The Guide to Strops. And it's rather intense. It's got the process of stropping, the pastes, the sprays, the chromium oxides, the diamond paste, types of strops, balsa wood strops, bench strops, loom strops, paddle strops, conventional hanging strops, sizes, materials for the primary, for the secondary, maintaining. Just about everything you wanted to know about strops. Good stuff. And so go check it out. Again, ShaveStraightandSafe.com by Joe. And if you get an opportunity, you should listen to Joe over there at the Wet Shaving News from time to time as well. They do a great job over there, too. I also got an email from John, new to the podcast and wet shaving. Hey, little back info on me. My name is John. I'm new to wet shaving. I'm a 20-year-old male from Florida that recently moved to the Philadelphia suburbs. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I grew up on the other side of Pennsylvania, so can't help you there, bud. Anyhow, he goes on. My problem was I could never get a close enough shave with the Gillette cartridge razors that I desired, so after some Googling, I stumbled upon DE Safety Razors and found out about your podcast on The Wicked Edge, which is a subreddit over on Reddit. I wanted to just tell you that I love your podcast. My first one was episode 120. I really enjoy your mix of shaving talk, life advice, and just general sense of humor. It's awesome to learn a lot about shaving and life in general in one podcast. So far, so good. Very close shave and not cutting myself up too much. Before last week, I didn't even know what a jerry can is. Now I want one too. Anyway, cheers from Pennsylvania. Appreciate the show, John. Well, John, thank you very much for writing in. Sorry you have to be over there in Philadelphia. It's the wrong side. I mean, Anyhow, I actually never have been over to Philadelphia. I've been to the middle of Pennsylvania, been all through the west side, both north and south and everything, but I've never been over to Philadelphia. Maybe one day, I don't know. I'm quite happy though. I'm comfortable right here where I am. So, anyhow, yeah, I know that, sometimes they say things, on Reddit over there on Wicked Edge. I don't go over there much. I've got an account, but I tend to, I went over there a couple times and I don't know. It's a nice place. They got great information and all, but it just didn't fit. So. It's like, well, okay, it's kind of like every now and then, you get a razor or a blade combination that just doesn't work, and you go, okay, you put it down, you go pick up something else. So, I haven't been over to the Wicked Edge in, oh gosh, 6-8 months. It's been a while. Anyhow, first off, welcome to the wonderful world of wet shaving. Seriously, 20 years old. I mean, yeah, good stuff. Hopefully it's going good. You'll have to write in and, tell me about your setup. What kind of DE razor you got, what kind of blades have you found so far that you like, what you're using for soaps, all that good stuff. Yeah, give us a rundown from a 20-year-old's point of view. Now, my son, he's 19, and his point of view, he was kind of complaining to me the other day because he told me, he said, he was talking about me and my podcast, and he's like, I don't understand how you enjoy it. I don't understand how you like it. It's like it's such a pain having to scrape off my face every day, and he's using he's using a Gillette, Super Speed that I gave him, and, he's got Gillette blue blades, and, he's got a Volfix brush and a salsa bowl, and I gave him a number of soaps. So he's got an assortment of stuff, but he hasn't found the enjoyment yet within wet shaving. So maybe one day. At least he's got the equipment that if he wants to go there, he can, and he typically uses it, and so it's all good. But yeah, welcome to the wonderful world of wet shaving. If we can answer any questions for you, well, like I said, send me an email. I also got an email from Randy, and Randy writes in, he says, always enjoy and eagerly await listening to your weekly podcast. You must excuse my late email on this due to my hectic schedule, but I have used the Feather single-edged blade in my early gems and ever-readies, including my favorite, the Damascene and the Shovelhead. I have a simple solution that is effective, so I made a short instruction sheet in PDF this morning to share. I heard more than once your desire to use these blades and other single-edged razors besides the Autostrop. I hope this helps. If you could send me an email, I'll send it to you. And then he realized that he had my email, so he sent it back. Anyhow, he said he sent me another email with the attachment that he'd made, and he said, I wanted to send this to you for weeks regarding how I use feather blades in my gems and ever-ready razors, especially after last week's discussion, number 122. This morning I got up early and put a short instruction sheet on how to make a less than elegant but very simple method to extend the use of this wonderful blade. I hope this may help you enjoy even more your Damascene razor. And so signed it Randy, and he's got, I'll put a copy of this down at the bottom of the show notes. But what he's doing is he is taking the regular single-edged blades that have a spine on them, and he is pulling the spine off. And then he is attaching the spine back onto a feather spineless blade. So now you have a spine blade that has a feather, it's a feather blade with a spine on it. So and then he can use them in his other razors. Yeah, simple, elegant. I'm gonna try this. And like I said, I'll throw it in the bottom of the show notes just so everybody else can learn from it too. And wow, good stuff. Randy, thanks a lot. I also got an email from Mark. It's a thank you for the podcast. Hey there, Rick. My name is Mark, and I live over in Glasgow, in Scotland. I have been wet shaving for about 10 months now. In that time, I've managed to listen to your podcast from episode 1 through episode 122. Okay, I am not responsible for any damage that has caused. I normally listen to them on my way to work, which helps brighten up my commute. I especially enjoyed your interviews and reports on the shave of the day. I just wanted to say a big thank you for dedicating your spare time and effort to make the podcast. The basic aspects of this hobby are razors, blades, soap, and brushes, but I must say that it's the people that truly make it enjoyable. And on that, I will absolutely agree. And it's a special type that is in this hobby for the most part. And yeah, they do make it very, very special. I often think how this hobby could flourish without the internet. I live in the biggest city in the country, but can't find a brick-and-mortar shaving shop. Outrageous. Sure, the big department shops have some concession stands with Taylor of Old Bond Street or Kent soaps, but nothing substantial for a full-time wet shaver. I've just turned 31 and so grew up in the fast-paced internet age. I work as a structural engineer in a busy office, so I really appreciate being able to slow things down when I can. An evening shave to relax after a hard day's work is just perfect. Being able to buy products from all over the world at the touch of a button still astounds me sometimes. My shave today featured an Italian soap, Portuguese brush, British razor, and a German blade and a bowl made in the souks of Morocco. Isn't it great that we have access to all of this? We also share a love of fountain pens. There's nothing better than writing with a good pen, ink, and paper. I've always thought that the two hobbies are pretty similar, actually. My pen of choice is an Edison Collier. You Americans know how to make pens. Anyway, keep up the good work, and it's been a pleasure listening, Mark. Well, Mark, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I would agree. It's the people that make this hobby what it is. It's a special group, for any of you folks listening. You guys are a special breed, and the ones that don't listen, that you know are wet shavers, that you interact with on the forums and Reddit and things like that. Yeah, it's a special person that wet shaves, and that goes for men and women both. I've never really had much of an issue with anyone. Everybody's been outstanding. We have some fantastic vendors that allow us to get stuff from all over the world, and that is rather fantastic. It really is. Now, on the fountain pen side, yeah, absolutely. There is a lot of similarities, and that similarity, I think, is in the fact that, well, you slow down, you take your time, you think about things. Things are very precise. The motions are motions of muscle memory and motions that are, well understood, determined, and specific in their actions. And, yeah. In fact, I've got a couple of bottles of ink over here from Private Reserve Fast Drying Inks, both in a Tanzanite and an American Blue, that I've got to, take to work and, play with a little bit, because that's another thing. It's fun, not all inks have to be black. Anyhow, Mark, I greatly appreciate the email, and keep going out there, and say hey to everybody in Scotland for me. All right, I also got an email from Andrew. It's titled Vintage Brushes. Hello. Long email to follow. Thank you for your passion for the show. Let me say that I was born in the 70s and started shaving in the mid-80s and saw the emergence of the Gillette Mach razor. I do own a double-edged razor. However, for the last 15 years, I've bought into the marketing of Gillette and their ever-increasing expensive razors. Cartridge razors don't do a better job than a DE, but they do allow me to be lazy about the shave angle, and I have found that I can shave more quickly. I got laid off a couple of years ago, and I really did a gut check on all my spending. Internet plan, cell phone plan, canceled DirecTV, shopped at discount grocery stores, turned up the AC, wore T-shirts and let it get 85 to 90 in the house when it was summer in the desert while looking for a job. Fortunately, my dad had a package of Fusion razors that he was not going to use. I had a Fusion razor. Thanks, Dad. I finally used up all the cartridges, but my face suffered for it. There were days I would pick up the razor and looked at the dried, shriveled lube strip that resembled a crusty strip of dirt track and I used the razor anyway because, well, I didn't want to buy any more. I moved to Texas and got a new job and finally came to the end of the stack of Fusion razors. My quest began for an alternative because I'm done buying Fusion razor cartridges from Gillette and their stupid-looking handle. I am not ready to go back and pick up a DE razor just yet. Don't judge. I ended up with a Harry's razor. I've heard their ads on the Wall Street Journal report for the last year, and I guess the marketing worked on me again, but their cartridges are half the price of Gillette's, and they ship to my door, so I decided to give Harry's a try. As it turns out, it's a good shave, and I can go a day and a half before I have to shave again. This brings me to my question. Sorry for the long setup. I need to buy a shave brush. I'm tired of squeezing shaving cream and applying on my face with my hands, twisting my fingers to get the cream on my face. I owned one when I did use a DE, but that was years ago. My dad has a few nice soft Badger brushes. However, I was thinking of getting a vintage shave brush and restoring it to its glory. And there's something to holding a piece of history. So, question number one, is there a resource to go to that lists the history of brush makers, how they started, list of model numbers, production years of brushes they made? I know Everready, Kent, and Simpson, but I know that there are many others, but I just don't know what to search for. 2, in the restoration process, I know one can buy replacement knots. What's the best place to get them? In the meantime, is there a modern silver tip brush that you can recommend that provides a good face lather because I'm not ready to buy a bowl? Okay. And I found that Cremo Cream and Lucky Tiger provide a good shave for me, but applying with a brush would be better, and a brush would allow for easier reapplication of shave cream. One last thing, are pre-shave oils worth it? Thanks for your time. I love your podcast. Andrew in Texas. Sent by carrier pigeon. Okay, well, a lot of stuff in there. Okay, so first off, are pre-shave oils worth it? I guess it would depend on your skin. I have fairly oily skin, and I have never found pre-shave oils to be worth, well, anything. For me, all they do is mess up my razor, make the soap act kind of strange, and just, no, for me, it doesn't work. For some people, however, with drier skins, they work fine. So it really depends on the person. You know, it's again, it's another variable to throw in the mix. It's one of those things that it could work for you, but it depends. Okay, so, all right, modern silver tip brushes. Okay, so when you start talking about brushes, if you want to go distinctly Badger, Simpson knots are known, but they can be expensive. Volfix knots, I really like Volfix knots. They're good brushes. I've had real good luck with them. The 2 that I've owned have been nice. They really have been nice, and they're not terribly expensive. So just, again, I've got that. I've got my Nathan Clark brush. There are guys that make brushes. They're a little bit more expensive, but they're really something special. Nathan Clark is one. Peter Wolf's another. Those are the 2 that just pop into my head. I know I'm forgetting someone, and I'm sorry. But, there are those avenues to look for as well. There are also the synthetic brushes to look at, which nowadays, Mule makes a really good one. I've had luck. The Plisson, the brush itself is really, really good. It's just the finish is coming off the handle. But there are other makers that are using the same kind of material in their knots, and so there's that as well. Okay, so I'm not a brush expert, okay? I know very, very little about brushes. I know how they're made. I know, some of the materials that go into them, some of the advantages, disadvantages, but I am by no means an expert. So, okay, so similar to a popular TV show, I threw out a lifeline, and I threw out a lifeline to Dark Bulb on Twitter, and he, of course, is one of those guys that knows a lot. And so what I did is I sent it to him, and I said, is there any guide for the history of vintage shaving brushes that you know of, a forum post or something? And he said, good question. He said, one to take a look at is there's a forum post on basic brush info over at the Shave Den. I'll put a link to that. That's a good one. He said there used to be a vintage brush history, but he couldn't find it. And there also might be something interesting on Shark's site, and I'll put a link to that site as well. I'm also going to send this question over to him via Twitter Messenger and see what he can do with it as well. And maybe we'll be able to get you an answer. Dark Bulb is usually on Twitter, and it's, every time that I've ever written him, he's always responded like immediately. It's great. It really is. He's my lifeline. All right. So I also got some other information from Dark Bulb, and I sent him over the actual letter, or the actual email, copy of the actual email. And so the first one that he's got here is pre-shave oils. Your mileage may vary. Personally, I've tried it, didn't see that it made any difference. If there's one area I would save money, I'd skip that step. But again, your mileage may vary. He went on to say it might be the placebo effect, and he said he's read some guys that have put it on when they go to sleep, and when they next morning when they wake up, their whiskers were softened and they experienced less burns, irritation, etc. when they shave. To him, it's one of those things he wouldn't spend any money on. Okay, fair enough. That's, for me, I thought, for the most part, it was an issue with my oily skin. So anyhow, the other thing that he said is, first off, great letter. A lot of good stuff in that letter. All right, so he said the question one, which was, is there a resource to somewhere that lists the history of the brush makers? And for that question, he said that the ever-ready numbering conventions pretty straightforward, as they often simply represent what the brushes cost. So an ER 150 was $1.50, or an ever-ready 150 was $1.50, and the OSSB site, which would be the Rubber Set Early History site that there's a link to in the show notes, probably has the most extensive list of those types of things and quite a few other vintage shaving brush numbers. So that's probably your best bet. Now on question 2, which was in the restoration process, you can buy replacement knots, but where's the best place to get them? Question 2, as far as restoration knots, the two vendors that seem to be most popular are Whipped Dog and TGN. But knots like Nathan Clark's Envy knots are quickly gaining popularity, and there are some great less expensive and trusted sources directly from China. Okay, so I'll put, for question 2 there, I will put a link to Whip Dog and TGN, and I'll see if I can find a link to Nathan Clark's Envy knots as well, and we'll put that in the show notes. I'll see if I can't do that. Question number 3, is there a modern silver tip badger brush that you can recommend? And for question number 3, Dark Bulb responds, most badger knots will be just great face lathering brushes. Sometimes just setting it a couple of millimeters deeper will also help increase the backbone of the knot. TGN's Grade A Badger knots provide a great combo of soft tip and backbone, but will set you back $30+ I've met very few Badger brush knots that don't do well for face lathering. Okay, so there you have it, straight from the man himself, and probably one of the really, really good sources that I would trust. That's why he's my lifeline for this kind of stuff. So again, Dark Bulb, thank you very much for being there and responding very, very quickly. Oh my gosh! Again, it kind of goes back to the previous email. It's the people in this hobby that make it so much fun. So great email, great responses. Thanks to everybody. It's a cold morning. Holy cow. It's brisk out here. Somebody need to turn up the heat. Somebody forgot to pay the bill or something. I don't know. This is supposed to be, South Carolina. It's not supposed to be this cold this long. Gee whiz. Walking around in, like I said before, if you're walking around in more than a thick or a thin coat, it's cold. And, yeah, that's today. Anyhow, let's talk about the shave of the day. The shave of the day today was, a bit of a step back in honor of somebody, getting back in it. And that somebody would be Darren up there at Wickham Soaps. And so today, I sent out the podcast yesterday, and in the podcast, I was strolling through my Facebook account and saw that Wickham Soap was back in business and had a supply of soaps on their website. And so in honor of that, because for the brief instant anyhow, I don't have to fear about using up and not being able to replenish my my Wickham soap, I went ahead and lathered up with the old Wickham Soap Spice Trade, which is an absolutely wonderful, wonderful rendition of an Old Spice scent. And did that, shaved with both my Case straight razor and actually my VC4 auto strop for touch-up. The issue that I have with my VC4 is that I can't get as close under my nose with the VC4 as I can with the VC1. But the nice thing is that with the straight razor, with the Case straight razor, because it is such a thin blade, it's a 4/8 blade that has been used and sharpened and everything else, so it's probably a little bit narrower than it was originally. It's a very nice tool for getting close underneath the nose and stuff like that. So with that out of the way, I can go ahead and use the VC4 as a touch-up razor beautifully. And I was impressed. And, BBS was achieved. It's, yes, very nice stuff. And I do enjoy it. And so... Again, in honor to finish off, since we had Spice Trade going on in the lather there, finished up with some Schulten's Formula Old Spice Aftershave, probably about the end of that little bottle. Need to order some more. I think that was stuff I got from West Coast Shaving, only because that's the only place I could find the Schulten formula from India. For the Old Spice. So, it's much, much preferable, in my opinion, to the stuff that they, call Old Spice nowadays, which is just so much more floral. It really is. It's just, I smell that stuff, when you smell the two side by side, it's like, okay, and, it's very similar to, I was watching a YouTube video on BRUT, and the differences in BRUT from the original and the eau de toilette and the splash that you buy nowadays, and the smell is just not the same at all. Which, the smells of these things, for some reason or another, I don't know if they're trying to refresh and make something new and different or what. But they change them over time, and the problem is that once they change them, they don't change back. I wouldn't mind if they swapped back and forth between like 2 or 3 and just kind of flopped back and forth between them, because then at least you know. But they don't. It's like they change and then they never change back. So, it's part of it, I guess, but it's a shame because you lose some of that just real, I don't know, memory, the good old days. I guess maybe that's why they're called the good old days, because you had aftershaves that actually smelled right. Sure, why not? We'll go with that today. But, anyhow, that was the shave of the day. Threw that on and ready to face the day. Got a lot of challenges today, but hey, we're alive, we're kicking, and ready to take it on. All right, planning. Let's talk about planning. I've learned something. I was with my scouts the other day, and up there at the troop meeting, and we were talking about some younger Cub Scouts coming to visit and wanting to put something together to just make it a kind of a fun event. And so we came up with a couple of things, creative fire building, or making hot chocolate on a camp stove, or just something that would be kind of unique and interesting, something that they probably don't do in Cub Scouts, and something that the boys could do with them and just have a good time, get to know them a little bit. So one of the things that I asked the boys to do was, first off, come up with some ideas, and they did. They came up with some ideas. And then what I asked them to do initially was, and let me know what stuff you need in order to make this happen. Okay, they came up with the ideas. And so this last troop meeting, part of the meeting, I sat down and I said, all right, let's plan this out. Let's, step by step go through each component of this thing and determine what it is we're going to need. Okay? Then we'll list them out. So the first thing we did was the hot chocolate on a camp stove. So I said, okay, what's the first thing you're going to need? Somebody piped up and said, well, we need a stove. I said, okay, great. What else do you need? I mean, with a stove, can you cook stuff? Okay, so then we got into the pot. I said, all right. So what else do we need? I mean, is that it? If I put a pot and a stove here, is that going to take care of itself or what? And they got to the point where they said they had a lighter and everything. One of the things they forgot was fuel. In their minds, the stove is the assembly, okay? And that's something to look out for. But in going through this exercise, I'm not necessarily convinced, but at least I lean in the direction that either they don't get enough or they don't teach them at all how to break a task down to its component parts. And so they don't know necessarily how to, plan. Which is okay as long as I recognize that, because I can work with them in Scouts, but it does beg the question, what about everybody that's not in Scouts? They really, once we got done with the list and they looked at the whole thing, they were, rather flabbergasted at the amount of stuff that they needed to get together and coordinate in order to just do something simple like make hot chocolate on a camp stove. Now, to me, it's intuitive. Because as an adult, you plan all the time. And you're probably somewhat good at it. It's just kind of the way it is. But it is interesting when you talk to kids that they don't necessarily have that same, frame of reference. I understand that, but I would have thought at some point somebody, in like a science class or an English class, when they're talking about how to plan out homework or things like that, they would have mentioned perhaps that you break it down into component parts like that and then work on each one, So somebody needs to go one place to go get fuel and another place to go get marshmallows, and they may not be the same place. Kind of the same when you're doing homework. So it's just a curiosity. It's one of those things because there is a value, an absolute value in the workforce for people who have the ability to look at something, no matter how large and potentially daunting, and plan the steps to make it happen. It really is. And if it's not being taught at a young age, it's something that comes slowly and potentially is fraught with errors and mistakes as you learn. And, if you have somebody who is being taught how to do that, well, potentially you're behind the curve comparatively. So it's a curiosity. So if you have, kids in your life, just see if you can figure out how to help them learn how to plan stuff. It's, whether that's for a camping trip or an overnight trip or, just going somewhere to shop, just figure out, for example, where is it that they want to go and what is it that they want to shop for instead of just kind of wandering around. There's all kinds of things that you can do to help. And do them a favor. Do us a favor, Because at some point, they're going to be running the place, and we're going to be standing on the sidelines watching. And it would be nice if the people running the place knew how to plan. Well, for the first time in a long, long time, Amazon has let me down. Wow. And the level of disappointment that I am feeling is, profound, because up until now, if you look at the things that are solid, if you look at the things that are, this is going to happen and there's no doubt about this is the way it's going to be, Amazon was right there at the top of the list. I've had them deliver everything within the 2 days, because I happen to be a Prime member, but everything within that 2-day window for free, just no hiccups, no muss, no fuss, just boom, there it is. You could set your clock to it. Well, yesterday, that didn't happen. I had a package of stuff that was supposed to arrive yesterday, and according to the website, it was supposed to arrive yesterday, and it was out for delivery, and blah, 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 and said, supposed to be here by 8 p.m. Well, 8 p.m. came and gone. I took a look outside on numerous occasions. No package. I was distraught. It was like and I hate to say this, but it was like a gut punch. Amazon let me down. Holy cow. What the heck, is the world ending? It's like, okay, the zombie hordes are coming over the next horizon because Amazon has failed to deliver. So, anyway, I got on the website. Apparently they had a mechanical problem or something happened, but the problem is that now they're saying it'll be delivered on the 13th. So it was supposed to be delivered on the 10th with 2-day shipping. Now they're saying the 13th? Something doesn't add up. I'm wondering if they lost it. In which case, all right, if you look at Amazon, I took a class one time, and this class, it was a business class, and the theme for part of it was that oftentimes what a business is making its money on is not what you potentially see from the outside. For example, Walmart, it was a retailer, but what made them money and what allowed them to operate on such thin margins is the fact that at the time, they understood every piece of stuff that was coming into a store and going out of a store. And as it was going out, the order was being built to be put on the truck to restock. And so what it was actually making the money for Walmart was logistics. Now, when you step back and then look at a operation like Amazon, and Amazon, yeah, they sell stuff, and they probably make a little bit off of that, but what they really make their money off of is logistics. And so when you have a company that's making money off of logistics fail to deliver, yeah, it's big news. It would be like, me, working at a tire company and creating a tire that blew up. That's not good juju. That's not good press. It's noteworthy. So anyhow, yeah, Amazon failed to deliver. I'm astounded. I really am. And the other thing is that, of course, one of the things that I got was a book on kayaks. And I was really looking forward to that. Now, granted, it'll be here this weekend, which is good, because I'll have time to read it and think and draw and, sketch stuff out and work on ideas and things like that. But I could have been doing that tonight. Oh, well. Maybe I'll make up for it with a good shave. Yeah, that'll help. So today being Thursday, February 11th, 2016, there was a very, very important announcement today, and that is that scientists have in fact found gravitational waves. Now, you may be thinking, okay, what has this got to do with anything? Well, let me tell you, if you can prove gravitational waves exist, then you can prove, or you have at least something to stand on for proving that there is in fact a space-time continuum, and that if there are gravitational waves, then warped time, the stuff that is, well, outside of our time reality, could potentially exist. So scientists can now start looking for important things. So let's go through the list, okay? All those lost socks? Yeah, that would be a good one. How about the comic book collection that Mom and Dad know nothing about as far as its disappearance from your youth? That would be another good one, because who knows, that might be worth some money nowadays. And of course, musicians would be clamoring away at having somebody, in fact, find the lost chord. Yeah. And who knows what else we can find out there. But the good news is that they've known about this for, well, a little bit, and they wanted to do it on this very special anniversary, which was the anniversary of the publication of Albert Einstein's theory of relativity 100 years ago. So, that having, things happen that are special like that on special occasion days and special days just in general, well, that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing that will be interesting, I was telling somebody about this today at lunch, the other thing that will be interesting is back in my day, and I'll do one of these back in my day stories, back in my day, that kind of stuff would be all around the school. Everybody would be talking about it. It would be a big deal at school. Now, it will be interesting when I go and see my son this afternoon, who is in high school, and I will not be at all surprised when I ask him about it, and he tells me that he has heard nothing about it. But of course, he's of course heard about how bad everything else is, but not how good or magical it is to actually prove the existence of gravitational waves. Okay, well, yeah, just got off the phone with a florist company, a national florist company. I was going to send some flowers to someone. I did this online, filled out all the information that was requested online, delivery address, the name of the building, because I sent it to somebody in a hospital. It's like everything's there. Name of the hospital, address, phone number, everything, okay? I put this online, okay? So I typed it out online. It's in a database somewhere. I get a message last night from this national floral company, and I get a message saying the recipient information is not complete and you need to call so that we can have more complete information, or you can do it online. Okay, so I click the online link and it goes to nothing. It goes to a page that has absolutely nothing on it and no way to continue from that page to do anything. Okay, so this morning I call. First off, I get some call service center in God knows where. Bad connection. Can't understand the poor guy on the other side. And I feel for him. I really do, because this national floral company has put him in this situation. Okay, I get that. But it is terribly, terribly frustrating. Okay? I give him my order information. I give him my name. And then he proceeds to ask, well, what can I do to help you? Okay. I received an email saying that you guys needed recipient information. Oh, well, who do you have as the recipient? And I read it to him and he said, okay, yes. It's like, all right, wait a minute. I've just given you the information that I already put online. I'm doing this. It takes me 15 minutes to do this because the connection's bad and we can't understand each other. Okay? And this is what a national company has set up for the consumer experience? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You know, it's stuff like this. I hate to tell you, but, you know, if you've ever seen the movie Undercover Boss, yeah, it's crap like this that I really do not understand. Now, there's another floral company that I have typically done business with. The problem is that they couldn't get it out in time. And that experience has always been, well, flawless. So I went with this other national company, and one that's been around longer than anybody else. Yeah, and apparently being around longer than anybody else means that you're so far behind the times, you can't even flag a database to say, hey, you know, we've got a problem here. Here's the piece of missing information. I mean, realistically, I would have thought, being a database, that, you know, as soon as you enter the order number and verify the person's name, it ought to highlight in yellow or flag somehow in that database the piece of information that is missing so that you can continue on with the processing of the order quickly and efficiently. Apparently, this is not the case. Why is beyond me, because essentially what they've done, at least in this situation from my experience, is made it difficult, frustrating, and completely unpleasant for spending money with them just to send some flowers to someone. Wow. Luckily, it's things like this that make me absolutely appreciate, truly appreciate, the vendors that we deal with and some of the people that we deal with within the shave community on a daily basis, because this kind of BS, shenanigans, etc., has not infiltrated into the experience that most wet shavers have with those that support the wet shaving community. So again, I am reminded of this just about any time I go out and do anything anymore. You know, these businesses wonder why they're not making any money, but at the same time, they are creating a customer experience that, well, sucks. You know, and then when they don't make the revenue, instead of fixing things, they jack up prices, which means now people are even more upset because now not only am I getting garbage service, but I'm having to pay more for it. It's a death spiral in business. Wouldn't it be a better idea to see how your folks are doing, see what's going on, and yeah. Why does it have to be so difficult just to do something that is, well, relatively simple and done every day? Goodness. Let's talk about the shave of the day. The shave of the day, I once again grabbed one of my Wickham's soaps, one of my super smooth Wickham soaps in the large tub. This one happened to be Bay Rum. And lather machine, yeah, they lather well. I mean, these things have been sitting in a tub for a while. The soaps have been around in my possession for probably a year, a little over a year, and still in great shape, lather beautifully, smell great. All in all, good stuff. Yeah, so the lathered it up with my Nathan Clark Badger brush and threw it in my electric scuttle, warm everything up, and proceeded to lather up, and not a problem. Easy loading soap, lathered up well, all in all, really good stuff. Now, when I ordered the other day, I didn't realize this, but when I ordered the other day from TryAblade, TryAblade did something rather special. And what they did is they threw in a Treat sample pack. Now, Treat is a blade manufacturer out of Pakistan, and so I had bought a number of the Treat carbon steel blades because they're one of the few manufacturers for double-edged blades anyhow that still make a carbon steel blade. So I wanted to try them to see how they went, and my last go-around was with a Falcon. And the Falcon didn't do too bad, but I could only get, 3 shaves on it, and, 3, maybe 4 shaves on it, and then it's pretty much over with. Which is not bad for a carbon steel blade, considering how thin it is. My single-edge blades, on the other hand, I can get more days of shaving out of them, but they're also a much thicker material. So just more beef behind the edge, if you will. So, looking and finding the sample pack was quite a surprise. Anyhow, one of the blade that I chose today, just to try out, was the Treat 7-Day Platinum. And so we're giving that a shot. First day was, it did okay. It's not a great blade, to be quite honest. I mean, it got reasonably close, but at the same time, in order to get as nice as I wanted, I ended up having to do 4 passes. And, the first pass, it was like, as I'm taking it over the, for that first pass, it was almost like it wasn't cutting. It was almost like it wasn't there. Now, that is synonymous with the experience I've had with the Treat Carbons. But the Treat Carbons, on the other hand, are cutting. This one didn't cut quite as well. So at least that was what I noticed. So ended up, in order to get as close as I wanted to, ended up having to do a little buffing action. I put it in my Gillette short comb new with the bar handle. It's a 75-year-old razor, and one of the nice things about that razor is that instead of the pins in some of the old, and in fact some of the new double-edged 3-piece razor designs, this one, the short comb new, actually has a bar, and that does a much better job, at least in my estimation, of aligning the blade. There's not as much movement in the blade, and so when you put everything together, it just naturally lines up better. So that's I wanted to give these blades the best advantage that I could. Plus, it's also a really, really nice razor, and I like it. So, so it's not completely altruistic. Sometimes it's just because, well, I like it. Anyhow, the Treat 7 Days is what we're trying this week. And like I said, so far it's like, okay. It's a blade. Yeah. Um, okay, so I'm a bit of a blade snob. It happens after time, you know. It's really funny. You become kind of if you run into a situation where you find the brushes, for example, that you really really like. And yeah, you may have some of the other brushes out there that you use from time to time, but you're kind of, I don't know, you gravitate toward one type, one style of brush. And it works for you. Something about that brush just clicks. You know, you've got it down, you know how it works, you know how to get good lathers with it. I mean, it just clicks. The same is true to a certain extent with some soaps, although, you know, soaps are kind of one of those things that you kind of play around with and, you know, experiment and everything else. But razors are something that you just kind of click with. Well, and, you know, once you find a razor that works really, really well for you, you either stick with the brand or you just stay with that razor and you kind of become, well, I'm using this word playfully, you become kind of a razor snob. Well, the same is true for blades. Once you find a blade that functions and works and does what it's supposed to do for you with all the other variables that you have in play, well, you kind of become a blade snob as well. You know, and that's why we run into this situation where there are some blades that work very, very well for others, and other people just cannot figure out how anybody's getting a decent shave out of these things. And it's like, okay, this blade works for me, and this other guy says, no, that thing's garbage. And there can be those differing opinions. And it's funny to listen to people because they become kind of, well, they get an attitude, really. It becomes blade snobbery. It's kind of funny. Again, this is not meant harshly. This is meant playfully because I find it terribly funny and terribly amusing. It's just, oh yeah, that one works great, but this one, no, that's garbage. When in fact it is what works for you at the end of the day, and but it's just fun. It really is. It's all meant in good fun. So anyhow, the treat 7-day platinum for me is I'm not terribly excited about using it again. I will for the cause, but it's not one of those things where, ooh, yeah, great stuff, yeah, uh-huh. It didn't impress me first go around, but that's okay. That's how you learn. Now, if you want to learn and if you want to have some experience with some different blades, probably the best place that I can think of to go is Try a Blade, just because it's the only place I know where you can buy individual single blades, a blade at a time. And he's a great guy and does great service to the wet shaving community. And so give him a try at tryablade.com, and that way you can determine which blades work for you, and you too can become a blade snob. Oh, goodness. I'm having way too much fun with this. Yeah, this really was just a shave of the day, and it's gone off the deep end here. Anyhow, there you go, the shave of the day. So the weekend shave of the day. And it's funny because on Sunday I had a shave and set everything up. Was going to take a picture for the shave of the day. Set everything up. Forgot to take the picture. Turned around and put everything away. You gotta love those days, huh? Oh well. So the weekend shave of the day. I used the same thing that I did the other day was. The Wickham soap, super smooth, and my Case straight razor, my VC4 auto strop, and lathered it up with the Samog SOC brush. Great lather, beautiful old spicy scent, you know, type thing. That's what the spice trade from Wickham is. That's the flavor or the scent profile of it. Threw on a little bit of the Old Spice aftershave that I have, and wow, off we go to the races. Good stuff. I mean, that's a that's just a classic combination. It truly is. It's just it's got kind of that old 1900s feel with the straight razors, and the old 1960s, 1970s feel with the old spice smell going on. I mean, just retro. Good stuff. Yeah. Oh goodness. Yeah. You just you want to throw yourself on an old motorcycle and just travel across country after that. I'm telling you what, good stuff. So anyhow, yeah, that was the shave of the weekend. Had a good bit to do this weekend, but well, it's just it was a good way to start things off. All right, well, it's a cold morning this morning, and it's kind of interesting. The cable for the microphone in the mobile studio is rather stiff, and it won't bend. Curious. So when I turn my head, it hits me in the side of the head. It's pretty, hopefully it'll warm up. Anyhow, let's talk about the shave of the day. Okay, so the shave of the day, I am working on the third or fourth shave with the Treat Platinum 7-day blade. Now, I've got this thing in my Gillette short comb, new, with the bar handle, and it does a real good job of aligning the blade, so giving everything the best situation possible. And the first shave was a bit rough. The second shave was a little bit better. The third and fourth shaves were not too bad. So fourth shave here, socially acceptable without any problems at all. 3 pass. Not a big problem or anything. It seems to have gotten smoother as I've used it. So this may be a good candidate if you happen to want to try it for pre-blade stropping. To just kind of knock the rough burrs off and kind of smooth out the edge just a little bit. It might even be a good candidate for palm stropping, just to get it in good shape so that it doesn't rough you up just a little bit. Not a bad shave. Used some Jeeves of Hudson Street soap just because I saw it and said, yeah, I'll use some Jeeves. And the old Nathan Clark Badger brush, and threw that in the electric scuttle, and away we went, and everything is good lather. And the only problem that I had was that I nicked my ear with my razor. And it's one of those things, every now and then you just kind of tag your ear or something, and you don't even know quite how you did it. You did it, especially afterwards, but you don't quite know how you did it. Yeah, one of those. It was on a downstroke, which is odd. It's usually, for me, it's on side strokes or upstrokes that I typically nick my ear. But in this case, it was on the first pass, of course, And I start on that side too, so maybe it was I just wasn't quite awake or something. I don't know. Anyhow, it happens. Out with the styptic pencil after the shave, and the slight stinging effect of the styptic pencil. Even though my styptic pencil is broken into it's half the size of the tube. It's broken into 2 pieces. It's gnarly. It looks like crap. It really does. But oh well, it does the job, I suppose. And, stop the bleeding. So, there you go. Now, the other thing that I'm doing is, I'm trying a new aftershave. I went ahead, I found it on Amazon, so I went ahead and bought it. And that aftershave is none other than British Sterling. Now, I used to buy British Sterling back when I was a kid for my stepdad. And, he used to enjoy it, and it was one of those, when you're a kid, you always find that 1 or 2, scents, if you will, of aftershaves or colognes. And back in the day, that was all you got, Dad. You just, he could kind of count on the fact that, birthdays, Christmas, stuff like that. He was going to get more aftershave. it was the simple thing to do, you know? I mean, that's, I don't know if kids do that anymore. I know mine don't. I don't know. My birthday kind of comes and goes, and my kids could kind of care less. They don't even know it's another day. But anyhow, it's not a big deal. But back in the day, that was the thing. So I hadn't smelled British Sterling in forever, and so I ordered some up and went ahead and got some and have some in hand now, and threw that on. It's got a little bit more alcohol than some of the other aftershaves, which is interesting. I didn't think about that, but it does have just a little bit more of an alcohol sting associated with it compared to others that I have. I mean, you know, my face did not feel rough or anything like that, and so I'm used to a certain level of, I don't know, I could use the word sting, but that's not quite what I mean. But, you know, when you throw on that aftershave, that initial burn, if you will, you know, I'm used to that at a certain level for a certain face feel. And the British Sterling was, well, more. So, you know, it was one of those things where, well, that was kind of unexpected, but that's okay. It's good stuff. The other thing is that it's a little bit more of a woodsy scent than I thought, than I recalled. So that's kind of cool. You know, just rediscovering the scent profile of British Sterling, and yeah, so kind of takes me down a trip down memory lane just a little bit, and well, all in all, it's a good shave of the day. So one of the things that I did on Saturday is I had something big and heavy in the back of the pickup truck, and I needed to get it out of the back of the pickup truck. And it was one of those operations where two guys basically slide this big heavy object halfway off the back of the tailgate, slowly lower the one end to the ground, and then kind of rotate it around and slide it so that you get the other end on the ground. And then, of course, we had to stand it up. So what did I do? Because at that point, my help left, had to go do something. And so what do you do in a situation like that? Well, you use levers. And using levers is a good thing to know how to do, and it's a good thing to know what you can use for levers. Now, I happen to have a selection of old hand tools, and yeah, some of them, like my picks and mattocks and things like that. Well, I happen to have a classic pick, which is a pointed end on one side and a kind of a flat end on the other side pick. It's like a railroad pick. The thing is huge. It's probably 3.5 feet, and got a nice maul handle on it. So that handle's another 3.5 feet or so. So it's a pretty big apparatus. And, you know, you slide the flat end underneath something on a flat surface, and you can rock that baby up and use the steel of that tool as a beautiful little lever. At which point comes the fun part. Let's slide something under it so that when you drop that lever, when you allow that lever to release, you can still have maintained the height that you've achieved. Do that a couple of times, and all of a sudden you got enough so I can put an 8-foot 2x4 underneath this animal. Now I got a big lever. And, well, that got me to thinking. So I eventually did get the thing standing upright, and then we moved it where we needed to move it, so all is good there. But it got me thinking, especially this morning, you know, where you hold your razor, double edge, single edge, even straight razor, it's designed to allow a lever type maneuver if you start moving the your fingers on one end. For example, if you have a razor and you are holding it at the neck and you're holding it with two fingers, if you take your other fingers and move the handle, you're essentially creating a lever action around your fingers. The two fingers you're index finger and thumb that are holding the neck of the razor is acting as the pivot point for the lever action for your razor. And the reason that this is potentially important is that if you're doing that, if you're rocking that razor into play, if you will, you may be putting more pressure on your razor than you think and not even know it. So the question that I would have is, what kind of a grip do you have on your razor? Are you levering your razor into your face, giving more pressure on the razor than it's supposed to have, and causing yourself to have a bit of a rough shave? Could be. Okay, so just something to keep in mind. Again, it was one of those things where I got to thinking about that this morning as I was shaving, and just sitting there going, yeah, you could do that if you're not careful, especially when you start getting around the areas on your face that have curves. You know, your chin and places like that. You could potentially be levering the razor into creating more pressure. Now, for me, I take like my chin and I do a bunch of small, straight strokes, okay? That way I can basically set an angle with the blade and I can just take straight passes with it that are small, and if you start connecting a bunch of straight, small passes, you eventually have something that sort of kind of looks like a curve. And so that's how I do it. But there is just a bit of a lever action as I hit that curve in the chin, if you will, that I use, and that's almost instinctive. And that's what got me to thinking about this, you know. Because you can put more pressure in an area than you think. So if somebody's saying, you know, don't use any pressure, well, you might be, even if you're trying. So anyhow, just something to think about. You know, levers are exceedingly useful in life. Allowed me to get a real big, heavy object out of the back of my pickup truck, stand it up, and lay it flat, stand it up, and do everything I needed to do with it. And they can also be disadvantaged. You know, you got to know where your levers are and how you're using them. All right, let's talk about the shave of the day. Okay, so the shave of the day today was not with my Treat 7-Day, because my Treat 7-Day Platinum only lasted, well, about 4. And at 4 days, it started nicking me and cutting me up. It's almost like it had chunks taken out of it and had teeth all of a sudden. It was pretty rude. It kind of walked up to the cliff and didn't just like fall off. It jumped off, and I mean, I think it picked up a rock or something before it went, because it just kind of dove off the cliff. It was pretty bad. It was interesting. It was not a bad blade. The first shave was a little rough. The second day was actually the best. The third day was a little rough, and then the fourth day it just fell off the cliff. I mean, it was just it was like, okay, take an open comb razor and stick the blade up against the comb, and anywhere where the comb cutouts are, just knock a chip in the blade. I mean, it was like scraping a rake across your face, a sharp one at that. So yeah, that's we didn't do that this morning. So what we did is I happened to have a feather blade. Now, I'd taken it out of the package a while ago, but I happened to have a feather single-edge blade, spineless, sitting around looking for something to do that was in reasonable shape. So I put it in my VC2 and proceeded to shave with that. Now, I had to be a little delicate with it just because of the previous day's nicks and slices. But all in all, a good shave. And the feather blades just do an excellent job. And so we used Wickham Soap Company's Spice Trade just because, well, it was sitting right there, and soaked up a boar brush, Smog Owners Club boar brush, threw it in the electric scuttle, and away we went. Now, the one thing that I didn't do is I didn't put any extra water in the Wickham soap this morning, and so it was a tad dry. It was a tad, I mean, there was a lot of lather, but it was a dry lather. And it was interesting because it was a dry lather, it really didn't have any residual slickness or glide. At least very little. I mean, no residual at all, but very little in the actual shave. So, it's one of those things that if you happen to have a soap that you're having issues with or you don't think is performing correctly, there may be a sweet spot, and, well, you're not in it. Most soaps, have a sweet spot for the amount of water that you should add to them to get a good lather, get good glide, and good cushion. And sometimes you can bump yourself out of the sweet spot to the low end and get a dry lather, and to the high end and get a very soupy lather. And neither one is very desirable or good. There is a sweet spot in the middle. And so that's what you're shooting for. And so if you're new to this, and just keep in mind that even people that are not new to this sometimes have issues, like I did this morning. So it's just something to keep in mind. Again, if anybody says that they've got this skill down pat, yeah, okay, maybe. I know I sure don't, but that's okay. That's part of the fun. That is part of the adventure that occurs on a daily basis every morning when I wake up and look forward to shaving. Well, that concludes this episode of the Brush and Soap and Blade Podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have some suggestions or would like a topic covered, drop me an email at brushandsoapandblade@gmail.com or give me a call at 864-372-6234 or contact us on Twitter at Brush and Blade. You can also visit us at our blog, brushandsoapandblade.wordpress.com. As always, we're available on iTunes and Stitcher.